new issues which are coming due to the pandemic. So we thought it appropriate to have a webinar to address all the issues with eminent speakers on the panel. So Registrar of Companies CV Sajivan sir has, as always, he's kind enough to accept our invitation, and he has agreed to be here. He may join anytime. I also thank CA Krishna Prakash and CS Karthik for joining this webinar. And it's my privilege to introduce another speaker and panelist for today's webinar, CS Karthik Varadarajan. CS Karthik Varadarajan is a practicing company secretary with 2 decades of experience as a PCS and overall working experience about 3 decades. Presently, he is a founder partner of JKS & Co., a multidisciplinary firm of company secretaries operating from Bangalore. He is a visiting faculty of Bangalore chapter of ICSI and a regular speaker at MSOP. He is a regular speaker at various seminars and workshops held under the aegis of ICSI and CCGRT. He was a part of premier research team of ICSI CCGRT from 2015 to 2018, submitted a white paper on one-person company to ICSI. He was the co-chairman of the Corporate Law Publication Committee of ICSI for the year 2018 and a co-author of ICSI Premier on Company Law, a blue book on the Companies Act. On behalf of Bangalore chapter of ICSI and on behalf of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, I heartily welcome CS Karthik sir. Welcome to you, sir. Yeah, with this, I'll give the floor open for the first speaker of the day, CA Krishna Prakash. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Om Prakash. Thank you, Mr. Vivek Hegde. I'm hoping I am audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you so much. So, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. It gives me immense pleasure to talk about the impact of audit and financial reporting to you today. So I'll spend about 10 minutes roughly to talk about some of the high-level aspects of how COVID-19 has impacted audit and financial reporting. And as we spoke in the plenary, the impact has been far-reaching. Perhaps what we spoke about in the month of May 2020, we would have thought that all this is going to get over the next couple of months, and then we'll be business as usual, maybe August, September. But here we are in the mid of October, and then still talking about when the wave 1 will get over. So that's we have to face reality, and that's where we are as of today. So one of the things that what has got proven is that there are many things perhaps that are not always in our control, and we always need to be ready for the next disruption that is going to come and hit us. The disruption that we are currently facing is definitely much bigger than the 2008 economic crisis that was there. At least the economic crisis was just economic, and but now we have a crisis that's economic, health, impacting livelihood of people, so on and so forth. So what we are going through today is something that's perhaps not even imagined even a year back. So, but if you look at it, from my perspective, I think if you look at the silver lining amidst all the doom and gloom, I think it has, the last 6 months has actually shown us that the society has a lot of resilience and inclusiveness to come together and then face whatever are the challenges that are coming through. One of the benefits, I would say, of what we have gone through the last 6 months, is the impact or the footprint of technology and digitization that has come through in our professional services world. Any amount of technology investment that we thought we will need to reach this level of technology usage, would probably not have got done unless we had been pushed to this stage. And also, I would say that if somebody had told me last year that you had to do an audit of a listed company completely virtual, I would have only laughed at them and said, come on, that's not going to happen. But what the fact of the matter is, there are several listed companies in India, and each of those listed companies have indeed completed their audits and their financial reporting within the extended time, obviously given by the government. But so what we thought was impossible is actually and has been possible. So to that extent, the realm of possibility, in my personal view, has definitely widened, and I think it has widened in all our for all our professionals. And therefore, and my personal view is that there is something for us to kind of take back when we look at the new normal, and then see that we are able to kind of take whatever are the benefits and learnings that we have had in the last 6 months is kind of taken up in the future as well. So impact of COVID in terms of financial reporting and audit, I will talk about it in 8 buckets, not necessarily in any order, but conscious of time, I will kind of talk about it in brief, and then when we have the discussions, in the later stage, perhaps deep dive as well. The first aspect is in terms of impact on the preparation of financial reporting and audit. As in terms of any financial reporting and an audit, the connect between a client and the auditor is something that is very important. And when doing work virtually, the connect that we probably will have when we do a live audit is probably not going to be there. So definitely one challenge which significantly impacted the audit process for March 20, when we had to do a lot of these financial reporting activities virtually. Then in terms of this is where the technology came into play, and especially in terms of the amount of data that we get from the clients. Normally we take that for granted because we are sitting right across the table from the client, and then it's easy for the client, it's easy for us to obtain the information that we need for the audit. But then once you say that we are going to work virtually, it is very important to have a robust information sharing platform which is data secure, which has all the encryption that it requires to give the comfort to both the auditor and the auditee that the information is only going and being used by the intended user. Similar is the case where the challenges around a multi-stakeholder audit, like a company or a bank which has a lot of branches, a lot of regional offices, and a decentralized setup. Again, the impact of that is much more and requires a lot of planning. But given the lockdown that happened a week before the financial year end, there was only some finite amount of time that was available for both the clients and the auditors to plan this ahead. And there were several things that were required to be done by both the clients and the auditors to reach where they eventually reached. The second impact is in terms of the impact or the ability to perform the required audit procedures. Again, when we look at a typical audit process, take the example of a physical verification of inventories or property, plant and equipment, or even the case of sending out confirmation of balances, right? So the presumption is that when we sit along with the client, there is no issue in terms of preparing these. But then 1 week before the year end, we realize that we cannot, or it's not possible for us to do physical verification at the year end. So what needs to be done? How can we as auditors and how can clients as part of their financial reporting process get these important activities done, and then ensure that the financial reporting happens with the same accuracy and quality, even in spite of all these challenges, is something that was very important. Here, the guidances that we received from the institute was very important and critical. This gave a lot of clarity to both the auditors and the clients in terms of what are the required procedures and what can be the alternate procedures or additional procedures that can be done. So we went ahead and then looked at how can we perform a procedure just subsequent to the year end, and then perform rollback procedures or any alternate procedures that could be performed to validate the balances that were existing as of the year end. So these are some of the items that kind of impacted from an audit perspective. The third item is in terms of group audits. So group audits are audits where there are, where there is a parent and there are various subsidiaries, maybe in India, maybe outside India. So typically in an audit of consolidated financial statements, it's very important for we auditors to ensure that we have enough oversight on the components that report into the audits. Whilst from a reporting perspective, obviously ISA 600 takes care of the requirement, but from an overall audit standpoint, with the powers of the Companies Act, there is also a requirement like in terms of plans for visiting the components during the audit, or in terms of reviewing the work of the component auditors. All those normally happens face to face, so all those had to be done virtually. And then the other aspect in terms of these components, especially those components which are located outside of India, where the impact of COVID was different from what we are going through, more acute in certain cases, not so acute in certain cases, and any business viability impacts that arise in those jurisdictions is something that needs to be taken care of from an overall perspective. So group audit again is a key area which impacts COVID, which has got impacted by COVID. Impact on the client's current and future operations goes without saying. In terms of key aspects relating to profitability of the operations, liquidity position of the client, the borrowing impact, are there any covenants that have got impacted, operational impact, supply chain impact, so on and so forth. So these required a lot of discussions with the client, and even for the clients, some of them went into a zero base in terms of their budgets and projections for FY 2021 because of the impact of COVID. So to that extent, the key aspects that I want to kind of specify here is that whilst we all worked virtually, kind of brought the client and the auditor closer together in terms of working on these new aspects, which kind of impact the clients in a very significant manner. And then the assessment of these aspects really kind of required a lot of thinking, thought process, and involvement from even from the board and the audit committees to kind of take a very clear view, or try to get a clear picture of these aspects. We'll talk about this in the subsequent phases as well. But the fourth aspect is in terms of the impact on the current and future operations. The fifth aspect is relating to the disclosures. So whilst we talked about the revenue impact on the account balances, impact on the going concern, so on and so forth, impact on the disclosures is also very significant, because even SEBI kind of brought out an advisory requiring all listed companies to provide certain disclosures. Similar disclosures were also kind of requested even for some of the unlisted companies by their private equity investors, by venture capitalists, by analysts who are looking for information, so on and so forth. So therefore, the clear disclosures relating to what is the impact on the entity, on their operations, on profitability, on liquidity, on their supply chain, etc., was something that was very critical for the clients. And also this provided a very important input for the auditors to go through and then evaluate, because ultimately all this is going to impact the the overall impact on the COVID aspect as such. The sixth item is in terms of internal controls. So one of the things that perhaps many people may not realize is the impact on internal controls, because now as auditors we also need to report on the internal controls over financial reporting, and with the lockdown being in existence as of the year end, there are a lot of year-end controls, annual controls, financial reporting controls that are exercised by the clients, where the controls would have changed from the way in which it was envisaged in their risks and control matrices. So to that extent, what are the changes in the internal controls that have been identified and exercised by the management? What are the additional controls that have been put in place to ensure appropriate and accurate financial reporting? So those are aspects that needs to be considered and have from a auditing standpoint as well as from a financial reporting standpoint by the CEO, CFO, to ensure that they are complying with the requirements from an overall perspective. Auditing significant judgments and estimates. Again, this has always been a hot topic, and with the impact of COVID to be overlaid on these significant judgments and estimates, Dr. Om Prakash spoke about going concern. impairment, various other significant judgments and estimates which needs to be exercised by the management and reviewed and tested by the auditors. Significant impact on all these areas, so to that extent, whether we talk about going concern or whether we talk about impairment, or even in the case of recoverability of trade receivables, expected credit loss model, so on and so forth. There are many areas which do not straight away meet the eye, that we think that will be impacted by COVID, but then when we look at the ground level realities, there are several areas that also have impacted in a passive manner. So that's again a very important area. The last but not the least, perspective is in terms of the industry impact. So here, when we talk about industry impact, obviously there are certain industries which have got severely impacted. People talk about aviation, we talk about hospitality, so on and so forth. But there are several other industries as well which have got impacted, in a very severe manner. Even take the example of a healthcare hospital. Normally, life sciences and healthcare as a combined industry, it's always regarded as not so significantly impacted. But when we split it between the two, healthcare as an entity, as an industry, has got severely impacted because of the restrictions, where patients were not turning up, but then hospitals needed to be kept open, and there were designated hospitals as COVID, but patients were not there, so on and so forth. So significant impact for hospitals, because of COVID as such. So industry impact analysis again is something that's very, very critical, which we need to kind of take up from an overall perspective. So I think at this stage, from an overall perspective, what I think is critical from an overall audit and a financial reporting perspective is to understand how COVID can impact. So what we have done is in many cases is to kind of understand or create a laundry list of COVID considerations at an account balance level, at an industry level, and then go through them to say, okay, if I talk about revenue recognition, what are all the items that could impact revenue recognition? Supply chain disruptions could be an item, or where the client or the customer has cancelled their deliveries or their orders because of COVID impact, so on and so forth. So these COVID considerations, which we can build in based on the guidances that have been provided by ICI, ICSI, and other international bodies as well, provide a lot of guidance and insight to us when we look at the impact of COVID. So this basically is what I wanted to cover from my end at this stage. So back to you, Dr. Om Prakash and Mr. Vikram Hegde. I'll be happy to kind of participate in the discussion for forthcoming discussions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Krishna, for the wonderful insight you have given on the key impact areas. I think you have covered the entire cycle and the entire gambit of what all can create a disruption in the audit space, especially. And I'm very sure that you guys are not going to the sites clients place and doing audit. Everything is happening online. That's a very good thing, sir. And clients are also happy to some extent, not seeing the auditors intern coming to the places and occupying 1 or 2 rooms, files going here and there. So that way, pandemic has changed the lifestyle of the audit. The concept which was unheard. Audit doesn't happen online, it doesn't happen virtual. But see what has happened to us, and now the audit is just happening. And even, for example, even the CS fraternity is also issuing various certificates sitting at home and getting details from various modes. Things are happening actually, and there are a lot of other practical issues relating to this. And I think this time for us to give the floor to PCS Karthik. May I have Karthik to please go ahead with this? Yeah. You want to share, sir?
Yeah, I want to share. Yeah.
Oh. You're going to show us some film.
That's not my screen.
Whose screen is that? I don't know.
Yeah, somebody is sharing the screen. Can you please?
Yeah, I think Whoever is sharing the screen, I think by mistake they have shared that.
Mr. Uday? Mr. Uday, that is the screen.
Mr. Uday, you're there? Please unshare it.
Sir?
Mr. Uday?
No, we are telling him to block it.
Yeah, because already it is shared. How do you remove that? That's good. Yes, Mr. Karthik, you can share.
Is it visible?
Gentlemen, one suggestion, please give the screen sharing option only to the panelists, not to others.
Have you shared, sir? Not visible.
I am trying to share. It's not coming. I don't know why.
No, you should keep the screen open.
I know.
Yeah,
I
and
kept
then,
the screen open.
there is a box in center, with a rectangle
Arrow mark.
and arrow on it. Any kids around you, sir?
Is it showing up?
No. Actually, the Murphy's law normally works at this time only.
Give me a moment, please.
Sir,
Karthik sir, right hand corner, sir.
let me help. This is Momita from BCIC, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, if you need help with projecting, let me know.
Can you? Yeah, you can send forward the PPT to the BCCI or Vivek, anybody, so that they can share it.
Okay, I'll forward the PPT straight away to Vivek.
Yeah. Vivek, is it fine?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
So you have a work to go.
Give me a moment, please.
In the meantime, Mr. Krishna, then how are you able to do the audit, Krishna?
Karthik sir, it is shared.
It is shared, is it?
Yes, it's shared, sir.
Yeah, it's
You just
showing
go
some
to the
PDF.
PPT, sir.
Shared.
COVID-19 annual compliance, no?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Just
it's getting
open the
open.
PowerPoint present. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you just put a
Now
full view.
just maximize the file, sir, in the corner, right hand side corner.
Yeah, you can.
Just move the cursor, sir.
Just open.
Sir,
Is
you
it
can
good?
start the slideshow.
Is it okay? Working now?
Yeah, it's working, but you have to be on a slideshow mode. Yeah, correct.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, it's working now. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
It's okay now, I think.
Yeah, it's visible.
Is it okay?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. At the outset, I thank the Secretary BCIC, Shyam Prasad ji.
Perfect.
I thank Chairman, Banking, Finance, Corporate Affairs, Expert Committee, BCIC, Om Prakash ji. Chairman, Bangalore Chapter of ICICI, Vivek ji. Sajeevan sir, our respected Registrar of Companies, Karnataka. Krishna Prakash Ishwaran ji, my predecessor, co-panelist speaker. And I welcome each one of you, the August participants of this program. A hearty welcome from my side to each one of you. I'll take about 15-20 minutes to run through this small PPT that I have prepared. My idea would be to basically, it might address some of the questions also, so that, we don't spend too much time on that part. So without much ado, I'll proceed with a disclaimer that the views that I express here is my own. It doesn't belong to ICSI or MCA, and you are advised to take professional advice as usual. If we look at this outspread of impact, I wanted to put one slide on COVID-19, because when we think of what kind of circulars and notifications have come from the ministry, a lot of people think as to why the government has gone this far. So let's understand, COVID is nothing but coronavirus disease 2019, which is highly infectious, highly contagious. What it means is it can spread very fast, and it acutely and severely affects the respiratory systems, the lungs. If unattended, it could be fatal as well. All of us know it originated from Wuhan, China. The early signs of COVID-19 was seen in October 19. There was a serious outbreak within Wuhan itself by late December, and it spread its tentacles across the globe. By early March 2020, several countries, including the European countries, Asian countries, America, which considers itself to be the leader in the medical field, every country got fatally affected, such that on 11th of March, World Health Organization declared that this is an pandemic. This is not just an epidemic, this is a pandemic. It's affecting the globe entirely. On 22nd of March, our Prime Minister announced one Janata curfew. Hello? Hello?
Yes,
Yeah,
you can.
please go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So on 22nd of March 2020, our Prime Minister announced Janata curfew, and later on from 25th of March, we had the first nationwide lockdown for 21 days, followed by another national lockdown of 14 days up to 3rd of May. And thereafter, the states were given the freedom to choose whether they need to continue with the the lockdown for the state or not. As on date, my dear friends, to understand the impact of this COVID-19 pandemic, I can tell you that 38.07 million human beings have been affected, and 7.24 million in India alone, that is 72 lakhs 40,000 alone in India are affected, resulting in worldwide 1.08 million deaths. In India alone, the deaths are 1,11,000 as of yesterday. I have taken this from the Times of India. Therefore, considering this situation, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and SEBI had announced series of measures during this period to give some ease, to keep the business on, to give the compliance certain respite. Now, if we look at what are the various relaxations, extensions we got, I would be focusing mainly on the annual compliance, but I may have to slightly touch upon here and there. Special measures were announced by General Circular on 24th of March. Board meetings, the items for consideration at video conference meetings were liberalized. As far as general meetings are concerned, AGMs and EGMs are permitted through VC till at least 31st of December. And the Registrar of Companies have announced, all the Registrar of Companies have announced a general extension of timeline for conducting the annual general meetings by 3 months. Also around this time, we have got this CFSS scheme, 2020 LLP settlement scheme, so that the impact of additional fees on the corporates is taken care of. If we look at the special measures, General Circular number 11 of 2020, which was announced on 24th of March, CFSS was announced in that, which was more of a kind of a heads up. Details were not there. The time gap between two board meetings was increased by 60 days. My friends, you would know that normally it is 120 days which is permitted, and as a special measure, at that time it was thought, to have the travel enabled and things like that, another 60 days was granted. So the gap between two board meetings, they said, could go up to 180 days. Applicability of CARO 2020 was extended by 1 year. Meeting of independent directors for the financial year 2019-20 was relaxed. maintenance of liquidity, liquid deposit for under deposit rules and the debenture rules were extended up to 31st of December. The timeline for filing declaration of commencement of business was also extended by another 180 days. And of course, the relaxation for independent, residential status, this was extended by another 182 days. If you look at the relaxations for the board meetings, in the normal circumstances, Rule 4, Sub-Rule 1 of Companies Meetings of Board and its Power Rules 2014 restricts transacting certain items through video conference, other audio-visual means. These items include approval of annual financial statements, approval of the board's report, audit committee approving the aforesaid financial statements, including consolidated financial statements, etc. Of course, there are other items also. As I said, we are today focusing only on the annual compliance. Then, if the board or the committee had physical quorum at one location, any one location, the other directors could participate through VC or OAVM. This was the existing rule. The relaxation, what we got from the ministry was that up to 31st of December 2020, all the restricted items given under Rule 1 may also be transacted through VC or OAVM. This is a big relief that all the corporates got. They were not required to travel from their place to the place of board meeting. The items could be conducted through video conference. We have a brief look at the relaxations that general meetings got. As I told you, this epidemic, this pandemic has been is spreading very fast. It is very contagious. So there was the necessity to maintain social distancing, and hence annual general meetings and extraordinary general meetings were permitted to be held through video conferencing. When it comes to dispatch of notices, emails were permitted. There was no relaxation on the notice period, which was not required. Private and unlisted public companies were required to make all-out efforts to obtain email IDs of all their members as much as possible. All other compliances, such as to whom to give the notice to, the advertisement to be released, the e-voting, in case of e-voting cases, etc., all other compliances were required to be complied. There was no relaxation on that. When we look at the quorum, all the members who were present through VC OAVM were to be counted for the quorum. There were no change in the number of members required for quorum. That remained same. Proxies were not required to be counted because this is a VC meeting, and therefore any member who is interested in attending the AGM or EGM could attend from anywhere. If you look at the items of business that could be transacted, apart from the 4 regular items of ordinary business, the ministry stated that special business may be taken up at the AGM or EGM only if it is unavoidable. Venue. It's a VC meeting, so therefore it cannot have a particular venue. The deemed venue was taken as the registered office. Now, during the lockdown period, it was not possible to dispatch the dividend warrants through post. Therefore, the ministry notified that where the company is unable to pay through electronic mode due to non-availability of NEFT details, etc., it may dispatch through post after normalization. Now, documents for inspection is the usual at every general meeting we are expected to keep. Ministry stated that it can be maintained and be made available electronically. Now, who could hold a VC meeting? The ministry clarified that, first of all, if it is a case of e-voting, all of them, they are entitled. Second, Nidhi companies, companies having share capital, companies not having share capital. All of them, they are permitted to have, if they have at least 1/2 of the members' email IDs available in the company's repository. In the case of Nidhi companies, additionally, there were few more requirements such that they hold shares of more than 1,000 rupees in face value or 1% of total paid up share capital, whichever is lesser. As far as companies having other companies having share capital and not having share capital, 75% voting power was insisted. That is, there are two conditions to be met, at least half the total number, and the second condition. Every VC OAVM required two-way communication for every participant, which means every participant should be able to see, and he should be able to, he should be seen by others. He should be able to speak, he should be able to hear the other person speak. And what is important is he should be able to express his views or pose questions concurrently during the meeting. Not that it is a recorded thing and you just play it there. There was a requirement of a helpline so that if anybody wanted any assistance, they could be helped. The participant, it was stated that the VC platform should be kept open at least 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after the meeting. Recording of the meeting was required, and transcript of the same was required to be posted on the company's website. The capacity of the VC was stated to have at least 1,000 members in the case of e-voting, and in at least 500 in other cases, to be allowed on first come first served basis. Of course, with the normal exception that large investors holding 2%, promoters, institutional investors, directors, KMP, auditors, secretarial auditors, scrutinizers, they would all be given a separate entry into this so that without any problem they can join the meeting. Then within 60 days of the meeting, the company is required to file with Registrar of Companies all the resolutions passed in the meeting in the form MGT 14, together with the chairman's declaration that the meeting was conducted in compliance of provisions of the Act and the MCA circulars in this regard. Now let us come to the extension of time for holding AGM. For companies whose financial year ended on December 31st, 2019, Ministry had relaxed and extended the time for holding AGM by 3 months, that is till September 30th, 2020. And for companies whose financial years ended on March 31st, 2020, first Ministry came out with a general circular advising the companies to make use of Section 96 of Companies Act 2013 and to seek extension of the AGM by filing e-form GNL1. And it was also stated in the circular that the registrars would be looking at the applications in a very liberal way and they would be granting the permission. But subsequently, a lot of representations were made, and the government also wanted to ease out this entire process. And so all the registrars of company in the country have then were asked to give an order by the ministry itself to give extension of AGM by 3 months without requiring the companies to apply for the same. Now, this brings up a question as to what is the meaning of 3 months extension. I have taken few illustrations so that some of your questions can be straight away answered. Let us say a company was incorporated between 1st of January 2019, from 1st of January 2019 till 31st of March 2019. The first AGM it can hold on or before 31st of December 2020 in the normal course itself. This company does not require any circular or anything, straight away they can do it. Second example, a company held its last year's AGM on 30th of September 2019. In view of ROC's order now, the company may hold its AGM this year up to 31st of December 2020. Third example is very important. Let us say a company held its last year's AGM on 15th of June 2019. In terms of 96 subsection 1, the AGM for the year 2020 may be held within 6 months of the financial closure, that is up to 30th of September 2020, or within 15 months from the previous AGM, that is 15th of September 2020, whichever is earlier. Hence, in normal course, the AGM should have been held on 15th of September 2020. The effect of ROC's order is that we may avail 3 months extension, and hence we may conduct AGM for the year 2020 on or before 15th of December 2020. I hope this illustration is clear because these questions we keep getting a lot. Now, OPCs do not have AGMs. OPCs do not require AGMs. Their annual forms for the year 2020 gets covered under CFSS 2020, and they may file their returns till 31st of December 2020. Let us just have a very brief look at CFSS 2020. This scheme was notified to give an opportunity of fresh start to all the delinquent corporates who have not filed their pending returns. The government thought that this could be probably one way of waiving off some of the additional fees, and that could bring some cheer to the corporates. Under these two new schemes, all the pending forms, including the annual forms, with the exception of MGT 14 beyond 300 days, are permitted to be uploaded without any additional fees. The link to the list of eligible forms is there, of course, in the homepage of MCA portal. The complete list is there. CFSS 2020 scheme also provides for seeking immunity at the end of the scheme, and the registrar may grant an immunity certificate so that there would be no prosecution thereafter. Both these two schemes are now extended up to 31st of December 2020. I wanted to make a mention of CRA 4 because CRA 4 is also an annual form. In the normal course, Rule 6.5 of companies' cost records and audit rules require the cost auditor to submit his report for any financial year within 180 days of the close of the financial year. Rule 6, Sub-Rule 6 requires that the company should file CRA 4 with MCA within 30 days. And the proviso to Rule 6.6 states that where a company has gotten any extension of time for holding the AGM, it may file CRA 4 within the extended period. Here comes the relaxation. General Circular number 29 of 2020, dated 10th of September 2020. What it states is, if the cost auditor submits his report on or before 30th of November 2020, it will be a valid compliance. CRA 4 may be filed within 30 days of the receipt of the report. And if the company has availed extension of AGM, CRA 4 shall be filed as per proviso to Rule 6.6, which means it gets the extended benefit. So this is briefly about all the annual compliances. My dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a very positive person, and I think this pandemic, we should view it as an opportunity, not as an adversity. And I would like to say a quote from Dhirubhai Ambani: pursue your goals even in the face of difficulties and convert the adversities into opportunities. I'm sure all of you realize that we as a country have a great opportunity to go into manufacturing and make it big in the Make in India concept, which our Prime Minister has been stating again and again. And we can raise the quality of life of our fellow citizens in this country and the world all over. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for an opportunity to speak to you. I wish to thank Bangalore chapter particularly for inviting me to share my thoughts on this, and BCIC and each and everyone for a patient hearing. I'm available for any questions that comes forth, and I would also like to thank my office team for helping me get the inputs for this presentation. Thank you, one and all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Karthik sir. That was wonderful, very exhaustive. I don't think we have any other questions to be asked. You have covered almost all the probable questions which would be in the mind. That's what Vivek was also mentioning. That's fantastic, and I think your team members should get an appreciation who have worked on this PPT.
Om Prakash sir. Om Prakash sir. Om Prakash sir. Mr. Sajivan has logged in, sir.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he had sent a message at he will log in at 5. Welcome, Mr. Sajivan. Our Registrar of Companies, Karnataka. Sir, you're here, sir. Have you logged in? Sir, you can unmute yourself and Others, I request everybody to mute themselves. Mr. Sajivan, sir, able to hear us? Hello. Okay.
Sir, I
So
think he's logged out again. I will ask him to log in again, sir.
Vivek, can you please coordinate, please?
Yes.
Yes.
In the meantime, I will be introducing Mr. Sajivan. As most of the professionals would be knowing Mr. Sajivan as respective field, the auditors, the company secretaries. I need not to very elaborately introduce him, but nevertheless, Mr. Sajivan is a postgraduate and financial management, industrial relation, and personal management. Had joined government services as government audit officer in Controller and Audit General of India (CAG) services for 10 years. He was there for 10 years. He joined Ministry of Corporate Affairs as Assistant Director, later as Deputy Registrar of Companies and Joint Director Inspection and Investigation. Presently, Mr. Sajivan is the Registrar of Companies, Karnataka, for the last 1.5 years. Mr. Sajivan is a member of Subordinate Account Services (CAG). He is also a member of Indian Corporate Law Services, that is ICLS. He is a fellow member of Institute of Company Secretaries of India. So let's welcome Mr. Sajivan, the ROC Karnataka. Vivek, has he logged in?
He says 1 minute. He says he will log in. Okay.
Let him log in. Maybe we'll recognize him. Now the panel discussions can start, and myself and Vivek will be moderating this whole session. So I will be asking questions relating to the audit, whereas Vivek will be asking questions on the annual compliances. Both the speakers have elaborately covered. Nevertheless, there are some questions which can be, shooted across the speakers who are here. This question is to Mr. Krishna. You're there, Mr. Krishna? Are you able to hear?
Yeah, I'm pretty much there.
Yeah, very good, sir. Very good. So, in your this financial reports,
Mr. Om Prakash,
yes,
Sajivan has joined just now.
oh, okay.
Sir, good evening. We welcome you.
Thanks, doctor. Welcome.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Sajivan. Please unmute yourself and talk, sir. Are you there, sir?
He has to unmute, and also one Mr. Mallesh also has to unmute. It actually is to mute. Mr. Mallesh has to mute.
Mr. Sajivan, you have to unmute yourself. There is an icon with the mic. You have to just press that so that we can hear your voice. Vivek, is he having any difficulties in joining? Yeah, I think he's talking to him. In the meantime, as I was, yeah, Sajivan has come, I believe.
He says he is not able to unmute. Shyam Prasad, can you unmute him?
Sir, I will admit him, sir. But he's not.
Please.
You,
Sir, I don't see him to admit, sir.
No. You have to unmute him.
he has already logged in, I think.
Yes. He called me.
But I cannot see his name, sir.
No, please search for CV Sajivan. He is there.
He is Sajivan, yeah.
Yes. He is there. And also one Mallesh.
We'll do
has
that, sir.
mute.
We'll do that, sir. Yeah.
One, and also mute one Mr. Mallesh. A lot of sound coming from his side.
Yeah, the Sajivan though. He has not mute, no?
No, I think he is trying through some other device.
Okay, we will continue the discussion. Mr. Krishna, we were discussing about the, yeah, he has come. Good evening, sir. You are muted. Sajivan sir, you are muted. Please unmute yourself. Shyam, can you unmute him?
Sir, we tried to, because he has to do himself, sir. We cannot from our side, sir.
Sir, you will be finding a mic on.
I will check, sir.
Yeah. Now that we can.
Yes, sir. Welcome to you, sir.
System, it is a problem that through mobile I am doing it now.
Okay, sir. Welcome, sir. Welcome to you, sir.
Okay. So, I know that date now. I am grateful to the ICSI, my institute, and this what is that? Bangalore chapter of Industry and Commerce, Vivek, Om Prakash, and the two eminent faculties, Mr. Ishwar and my friend Mr. Karthik. And all might have heard their views and expertise in all these field, whether it is audit issues or the companies at provisions of companies act and compliances. Having said it, this, as you know, that during this period of COVID, for the last March, or whatever is maximum assistance to the corporate to come out from these issues, including that one, that what is a blanket approval of AGM up to December 2009 without even application to the ROC, and also the CFS scheme, and which was extended up to December. And I can't imagine that one. A company can file its 20 years document with simple 200. So it is our intention is to assist the companies or corporate to come out from the recession, and like earlier what they were doing. Maximum assistance given is the one of our ministry. Among the ministries, Minister of Corporate Affairs. And recently, there is an amendment of Companies Act also been passed by the Parliament, and many provisions of the Companies Act where the criminal or imprisonment has been removed, and substantial reduction of penalty also been taken care of. And a few cases it is that one is, but even I was personally concerned about the issue related to director's report, whereby if you know that companies, even a normal company, even the private limited company, had to disclose at minimum 30 to 40 disclosures. And even if the company or directors missed 1 or 2 disclosures, the penalty can go up to 25 lakh. This is gone or what? You can see the water. You can continue that. It's working. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sound.
We can also see you.
So if it is audible to me, audible to you.
Yes, it is audible, sir.
Yeah. So that this, what I want to say that one, there are substantial dilution of the provisions of Companies Act in favor of the corporate. And you see that 89, one of the concerns raised by the corporate or the professionals about beneficial ownership, how it is and all these things. The one is about that one, it has been decided, okay, rules to be made, that one certain companies can be exempted from the provisions of compliance of 89. And even I feel that one, even I also recommend one more committee has been formed in the ministry, and with the help of Mr. Vivek, that we suggested about that, what is that beneficial ownership. What we are suggesting that what ROC Bangalore as such, it is suggesting the committee that instead of filing each and every time this Ben 2 and all these things, why can't it be a one time? So one time that it can file it. What are the changes has taken place? Each and every change has taken place in the beneficial ownership. It need not be filed with the Ben 2. So it can be one time. So at least like that we had suggested. Now today I am sending to the ministry. I had a suggestion about 20 provisions where it can help in ease of doing the business. And I don't want to share it because it is only the part of it is only the drafting stage. It is on the recommended stage. Then I don't know what are the things to be seen that, because one thing I would like to say, during the last 6 months, of course, that one from the March, April onwards, we had, as per the statistics, number of companies incorporated or LLP incorporated almost. But one thing I would like to inform that one in Bangalore, particularly, it's the silicon capital of India or software capital. By slow and slow, it is coming to the Forces capital of India. The company incorporated. Some incorporated and they do that when they do a sponsor business or luring the poor gullible investors and collect money and vanish it, and many cases. And I would like to share one case whereby last month it is the company, one Section 8 company, non-profit making company was incorporated at the end of, I think in the month of July 2020, the last date. And in the next few days, in the social media, I could see that when I also got it. Social media, that one advertisement has come, showing in the top of it the title is the Government of India Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and one side Ministry of Corporate, and one side the name of the company, and with totally making an emblem of Government of India to show that one it is a scheme. These companies incorporate Government of India, and also that is the scheme whatever it is that was proposed. That I will tell you what is the scheme. It is as per the Government of India scheme. So that one when I saw it, that one we examine the matter, and it is what they are telling that one they want to lure the poor students, poor parents to pay 3,500 per computer, per LLP. What they say that one they will provide a high-end Lenovo computer for rupees 3,500, and they had contacted almost all the schools of Bangalore, maybe maybe outside or outskirts also, or in the other parts of the Karnataka city, Karnataka state. And they say that 3,000 you make the payment. Where to make the payment? It is not through the bank account and all these things. You will have to make the payment in one of the shops opened in Indira Nagar, some trading company. Okay. Then next day itself we issued a notice to the what is that, what is this and all these. Of course, they came out because the company is very brand new company. They came out, they replied that one, we were not aware of this. Government of India emblem and the name of the Ministry of Corporation should not be used in our pamphlets. This is the reply. Anyhow, we stopped it. We stopped it. Not only that one, for using the Government of India stamp and emblem and the name, I had filed before the police station, Padivala police station, an FIR also registered. Investigation is continuing. The company had to stop it because I told to stop it immediately. And by the time, the company has collected almost 15 lakh rupees from 3,000 rupees, 3,500 rupees from 15 lakh rupees. All these poor people might have invested. Okay, reasonable rich people will not invest 3,500 for getting that one. What they said that one, they replied to me, say that one, they are getting this one CSR fund from somewhere else in the Patna, the Bihar Patna, some trust. I don't know how far it will be. Anyhow, they given that one now reply that they have stopped the business and all this, they are converting into a private limited company. So this is a one of the examples I said it. Like that, many cases are there. IM and all you must be knowing that one. That is a focus. In spite of that one, the people are getting invested, people are getting cheated, and so many forces are in the market now. I think that is why I said all these things. And what any as an ROC, I can tell that one. Of course, always I am there. So far as I am as ROC here, and Ministry is always there to support you, the company as well as the professionals, all the professionals, whatever it is there, and of course, as per your expectation, I am running that, or maybe a vehicle with a 50%, because 50% stamp only I can ask my staff 50% only to attend because of social distancing and all these things. Still, I think that reasonably I cleared all the documents. Still, expectation, I think I can reach to the expectation within few months. With this, anything is to be ask me, that you can ask me that one. Or because I have 5:45, I like to send one important report to the ministry, and tomorrow there is easy for that. Just 20 minutes, I'll be available.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. It was a very good insight that whatever you had told. Sir, we have a lot of people have a lot of questions in mind. Now that you have come before us, we are here more than 100 people who are participating in this webinar. Can there be, because now today if you see 2021 is going to be a wipeout in most of the balance sheet. Many of the companies may not be in a situation to give a good financial report for this particular academic year. How does the MCA or the government treat, sir? Is there a chance that these people need not file, or even a nil report is also okay? How is it?
No, as a regulator, I cannot say that one. It is not proper. It will not be correct to say that one. The company can file a report. The data is the balance sheet and profit. Of course, I cannot say that the correct picture, the balance sheet filing of balance sheet is mandatory. It has to be recorded. For that only we had given. There is a CFS scheme is ongoing. Extension of AGM has given to you. All these things, but you cannot say that one. Okay, whether exception being given to for filing balance sheet, no, not at all, because your balance sheet.
Vivek, you have any questions?
Yeah. Sir, thank you for your opening remarks. That was really wonderful. Thank you very much. And I have few questions which is asked by our participants. So first question is on the LLPs. LLP, there is a requirement that every LLP should file a statement of account and solvency in Form 8 within 30 days from the end of 6 months. That is 30th October. Of course, for filing, there is a scheme available that they can avail, but there is also a requirement that a statement of account and solvency, which should be signed within 6 months. In case of audit, is it mandatory that audit report should be signed for LLPs within 30th September 2020, or is there any extension for that? That is the first question, sir.
Yeah, you want me to answer first question, or you will continue like a second question also now? Then I can at a time I can file it. I can reply it over.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can tell that. Not a problem. I can do that. So the second question is on the OPCs. Yeah. On second question is on OPCs. OPCs. Our Karthik sir has expressed his views. OPCs. This extension is not applicable for OPCs, whereas they are also required to file financial statement within 180 days from the closure of financial year. Is this extension is applicable for this OPCs? That is the second question. And
I'll answer to.
Yes, please, sir.
Vivek,
Thank you.
Vivek, don't ask all the questions at a time because I'll not be able to remember. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, question is, first of all, the concept of conducting AGM for OPC is not at all there. Because OPC is a one-man company, there's no meaning of conducting AGM as such. Okay. So it is required to be, it has to be required to be financial statement prepared by first. 30th can be a way to file up to 31st because there is no question the first time I would like to answer the question is whether AGM is applicable to these OPC. The answer is no. Okay, because it is irrelevant as far as LLP is OPC is concerned. As far as OPC financial statement has to be completed as per the provisions of law, has to be completed by 30th of September 2020. There is no extension for that. And LLP scheme is also ongoing. They can file the document without additional fee or whatever it is fee up to 31st of December 2020.
Yes, Mr. Ravichandran. Mr. Ravichandran?
A question to the Deloitte partner. So in fact, important thing we miss is the extension is given by MCA for having AGM. And I think Deloitte partner also explained about the virtual audit. It is happening with all the companies. The audits are delayed because of the COVID. Most of the people are working from home. Okay, but there is one more issue compared to last year. This year, the tax audit and the transfer pricing audit has to be filed before October 30th and not November 31st. So in fact, I have taken up with the direct taxes committee also. So this needs to be extended. I think income tax is given what I call extension for all the taxpayers other than corporates who are coming under transfer pricing and tax audit. So there is a what I call total. It is not what I call not at all helping the taxpayers. So immediate extension for filing of tax audit report as well as the transfer pricing report is warranted.
So any views, Krishna, on
Krishna,
this?
yes, sir.
Yeah. So thanks, Ravichandran, for that point. I think this point I think will resonate with all our colleagues who are there on the call. Everybody are looking forward to that. When MCA has been kind enough to extend it up to 31st December, having the tax audit, which requires a set of audited financial statements, while you can file it with unaudited information, but that's not what we want to kind of do. So, having a set of audited financial statements is paramount to having a tax audit report completed. So to that extent, it is a dichotomy in that sense. So we need to wait and watch. There is another 16 days to go. But there are few companies, what they are doing is at least, they've taken the extension that has been provided by the MCA and trying to complete the audits by 31st October so that even the tax audits can be completed as much as possible. So that's one way to kind of see what can be done. Until the time we get the income tax also, the extension, if at all, from the income tax authorities. So we will need to wait and watch for that. But 16 days to go is what I can say, and I think that request is something that is there in all our minds.
Don't you think both the departments should synchronize, because the MCA has given time till December 31st, and whereas your returns are going to be in November.
Not only the returns, I think it is October for filing tax audit report.
Yes.
Otherwise, we end up doing 2 tax audits, which will increase the compliance cost.
Correct.
And
Ideally,
if you don't
yes.
return without the tax audit report, there are penal consequences and carryover of unabsorbed losses and depreciation is the issue.
Correct. So ideally, yes, but we will have to wait and watch.
Mr. Sajivan sir, another question is, you were talking about the director's report. Sajivan sir?
Yeah, tell me. I'm hearing.
Yeah. You were talking about the director's report, sir. So in this COVID, definitely there is going to be a lot of audit qualifications going to come up. So can the directors, have a blanket, kind of a, they can. The only way to address is the director's report. So how does it, go ahead? Because there's going to be a lot of default going to happen. Most of the companies may default in their statutory payments, and all these things are going to reflect in the audit report. And the only way to address is the director's report. So how do you see that, sir? A lot of clarifications will be in the director's report.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear.
This is regarding the auditor's qualification in the audit report or even the CARO, that whatever, there is no exemption for the auditor not to point out the my qualification adverse remarks. It is his responsibility under section 143 to point out whatever it is, because on account of COVID and all, there is no restrictions. I mean, there is not to report it. Okay, that exemption not given to the ministry. That to please keep. And even if it is there, there is a qualification, what is to be done, that one? It has to be reported by the directors of the company in the director's report. What's the problem? You write that what is the reply, that in the each case you reply that what is the violation 134(3)(f). So it is only required that you let give a reply. You cannot accept the reply. Reply has to be given. Otherwise, there is a violation. I'm telling you that 134(3)(f) will apply. So better reply. I think that will be compliant. That will be the sufficient compliance.
Sure, sir. Thank you. I have one more question on signing the financials. There are 2 questions on signing the financials. First is the new normal practice is affixing the digital signature by the directors as well as the auditors, and sometimes directors will sign physically and auditors will sign digitally, or vice versa. Is it okay? Is it in order? That is the first question. Second question, since most of the board meetings which are being held for approval of accounts is being held through video conferencing, and it may so happen that the directors may sign the balance sheet on 2 different dates and auditors will sign after that. So there can be 3 dates in the financial statement. Is that fine? These are the 2 questions on signing the financials, sir. Over to you, sir.
As you know that there is signing of balance sheet or finance statement. There is no balance sheet is a finance statement only, because companies never recognize a balance sheet as such. It is only a finance statement, and balance sheet is the one of the items as part of finance statement under section 240. Okay. Anyhow, signing a balance sheet is governed under section 134(1) and 7. So 134(1) I am not telling that because it is somebody who has to sign it and all. They are not coming to that one. If you see the 134(7), say that the financial statement duly signed finance statement to be filed and filed with the registrar. So now the question is, duly signed, first question is whether it can be digitally signed. Okay. So as of there is no clarity on whether it can be digitally signed or not. Unless until they digitally sign, it has to be. We expect that one. That it has to be the balance sheet, at least that one hard copy of the balance sheet before putting up before the board of directors for adoption. It should be signed, or after that one, it should be signed by the 2 directors, 3 directors, 2 directors or MD or CFO and CS. So my understanding that digital signature on the balance sheet is not been recognized. Second question is about what is that? Yes, 3 different dates can be on the balance sheet and profit loss account. And I don't think so. Anywhere in the companies had mentioned that there should be a 3 different signature. The only thing is that one, after the board meeting, the board, the profit loss and statement, where financial statement, including directors, it has to be signed. But that auditor should be always before the adoption of the board report, before the adoption of the balance sheet in the board meeting. Because the reason behind is that one, the auditor's reports also to be adopted along with the director's report. So that date can be different, but the auditor by signing it has to be taken care of it. Any clarity on is required that Mr. Vivek?
Yeah, I think that answers the question, sir. That answers the question. Thank you. So the digital signature is not allowed. That is your view, sir. Thank you.
Mr. K.S. Ravichandran, you can ask the question.
Sir, good evening. I was, trying to seek a clarification whether the provisions in the Information Technology Act that a document required to be signed can also be signed digitally could come in the way of requirements under 134. Because today, in view of the COVID issue, we are getting it signed by the directors digitally as well as auditors, and it comes with a timestamp, which is more authentic in a practical way. I am saying. I request your kind clarification on that.
I agree with because I think that you are a master in the company's revision that one. Okay. Anyhow, the thing is that since the section is clear about that one, it has duly signed because signature has not been, as far as balance sheet signature has not been clarified. The matter will be I'll raise the issue with the ministry whether some clarification can be given. You are correct that one during the COVID period, the VC, the board of directors can adopt the balance sheet through VC also because that was prohibited earlier. Because of the COVID and all this, that is allowed as a case. Okay. The signature should be allowed because one director will be in India, another director will be in Australia. You cannot expect that Australian person to come and sign it here. And then the purpose of that VC, that the ministry circular on board meeting can be conducted on that one for adoption of balance sheet is defeated. Anyhow, this matter I will raise to the ministry that was some sort of clarification.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for your gesture that you will take it up with the ministry. And there is one question on the extension of AGM, sir. This is one doubt which we are getting since we have the circular which is extending the AGM. It is the due date. Due date means there is an interpretation that there is a word used in the section. In any case, gap between 2 AGMs should not exceed 15 months. So my opinion is extends that 15 months to another 3 months. Your views on that, sir?
I'll say that my view is that only that if you see the section 96 of the companies, the first paragraph, first section 96(1) itself. What is say that one? Okay, the first talks about the first AGM of the company of incorporation, and secondly about the difference between 2 AGMs should not be more than 15 months. And also there are so many proviso mentioned that, and proviso. One also provision is mentioned that ROC, the concerned ROC is empowered to give on the basis of application. Now there is application because of COVID and all this. On the basis of application, give an extra 3 months, depending upon the situation. Okay. So in this except what is that is clearly mentioned except the first AGM, because first AGM is already begun 18 months. So now these 3 months, automatic extension of 3 months will be applicable to for 15 months also. Nothing wrong in that if it is the company conducted, of course, that has to 15 months and 18 months, it has to be seen the date of AGM. Some few cases it may be AGM might have conducted, last AGM might have conducted in even May also. So you'll have to see what is the AGM date, due date. The 15 months strictly cannot be implemented because ROC can give that 3 months more for that. 18 months can be done. Now, since the blanket approval has been up to 31st December, you can take it to granted that okay, that AGM these 15 months will not be applicable. It can be conducted within 18 months. There is no problem.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. I think this is the same our Karthik sir also expressed in his presentation. And I think
the thing is that section is very clear about that. Thing is that when ROC cannot give a 3 months extension only in the case of a first AGM. That means it can be given 3 months extension for any other cases.
Sajivan sir, there is a question on managerial remuneration. Question has come from PR Subhakar, who is asking a question that 2021 is going to be a substantially low profit. Will there be any relief in the managerial remuneration? Any percentage?
I think that when manager remuneration totally diluted under the Companies Act, because there is no approval as such is not required. And if you see that now even now one more in the amendment, the Companies Amendment that also it has mentioned that one even the independent director, non-executive director can also get it for shareholders, irrespective of the. So in that case, okay, we don't expect the loss will be spill over to next financial years. So we hopefully that one all the corporate will be making a profit next financial year, so 2021, 2020. So even if the company is having a low loss, so that when the company is given the profit, that one remuneration. As such, there is no other relief has not been given or not been under consideration now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions?
Yeah.
There for another couple of minutes.
Yes, Sajivan sir, there is one question on the CFSS scheme immunity certificate. Question is it automatic or should we apply for it?
So, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, it is a question on CFSS. Yeah, question on CFSS on immunity certificate. Question is it automatic or should we apply for it? Immunity certificate under CFSS.
If you see that one, that circular, general circular of CFSS, it is very much specifically mentioned that on the application immunity will be given. There is maybe that online there will be an online form will be generated now for that getting an immunity, but there is an application required for that. Without that, it cannot be automatic.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So
and it
there will be
is mentioned that it is ROC.
Om Prakash sir.
ROC to be.
Yeah.
Professor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sir, our president has joined. He would like to share things. You can just.
Welcome, Mr. Parashuraman. Yeah, ROC is here.
Very good evening, sir. Good evening, Dr. Prakash, and good evening, senior executives, and Mr. Sajivan, Register of Companies, Karnataka, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Mr. Krishna Prakash, partner Deloitte, Mr. Vivek Hegde, chairman of ICSI, and my dear friends. And today I'm very happy that we could organize in collaboration with the company secretaries of India, Bangalore, and Bangalore chambers, we could organize this session on audit issues and annual compliances. And I'm very happy that definitely this is a very value-added program and bring in a lot of valuable points to our member companies and all the participants. Especially today, this is one of the biggest challenges facing all the corporates at various levels, and it can make or break the business. Therefore, I'm sure that this kind of webinars would be of utmost importance and add value to the members. And I thank all of you for attending this. And once again, my special thanks to Mr. Sajeevan, the Registrar of Companies, Karnataka, and all other senior delegates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, President, sir. Yeah, Karthik, you wanted to ask some question.
I did not want to ask a question. I wanted to say that if you see that CFS's circular, at the end of it, the form is also given, which means that form is to be filled up to avail this one, and ROC will grant that.
And what is your views on the digital signature? If at all they permit, Mr. K.S. Ravichandran also was mentioning that it is, if you see the Information Technology Act, the digital signature is allowed. All things are happening digitally. Only thing is you need to give a proof of that person has affixed, maybe a photograph or a video.
In my view, first of all, these circulars came when there was a total lockdown, nationwide lockdown. Today, the situation is better. Okay, when the circulars came, that time there was no possibility of people meeting across the table. It was not possible. Today, it is still possible with covered face mask, etc., still possible. So, there was no possibility of physical signature at all. We had to do it only through video meetings only. So in such a scenario, it was not possible for anybody to take proper printouts. Achha, those days we were not having courier services also. There was no service also. So there was no other option but to use digital signatures. This is point number one. Point number two, when I was in a conversation with somebody in the Delhi Shastri Bhavan, some conversation I had on checking out this in the ministry. What they said was, so long as you are using this document in the digital mode, the digital signature is valid. That is to say, once digitally signed, if you take a print of it, the physical print, the digital signature is not valid, because anybody can make out that kind of, and just put it there. But however, when you use it as a digital document, whether the person has signed or not, it can be very well checked by clicking over it, and you can see the validity and everything. So therefore, that digital signature is absolutely valid once it is exchanged through email, etc. Okay, so this is the broad view. And we had no, of course, like Ravichandran sir also said, in the IT Act, it is very clearly given. We were also using it for various contracts and other things. Anyway, we are doing it. So this should be taken up, and I'm sure all the leading companies who held their AGMs in the month of May, June, the biggest company, largest company in the country, and all of it, I'm sure they have used only digital means. There was no way of doing physical signature. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Mr. Krishna, you are there. We wanted to know what could be the report specific for COVID-19 in your audit this year.
So, Dr. Prakash, I didn't understand the question fully. Sorry.
So basically, in the COVID-19 situation, normally the audit reports people prepare. In terms of the reporting, do you have anything on the going concern concept or any other important issues which you'll be dealing at?
Sure. Okay. Yes. So as part of the audit, as I was talking about, so the key areas that have impacted all the clients, is around liquidity, profitability of the entity, ultimately in terms of whether they are going to be able to sustain their operations on an overall basis, at least for the next 12 months, so on and so forth. So when we look at what has happened, for the March 20 audits, there are several, when I looked at some of the listed entity audits that not just by us, but all, by all the other CA firms, the number of in a normal audit report, you have typically a concept of having emphasis of matter paragraphs, right? So similarly, there for certain for listed companies, there is also a key audit matter paragraph that has to be included in the report. So many of these cases, see, ultimately, the impact of COVID or ascertaining the impact of COVID is a significant estimate or judgment, whether it is on going concern or is it on impairment. There is a lot of good faith discussions and forecast of the cash flow projections that are being done both by the entity, and there are various assumptions that are included in this. So validating these on the basis of the reasonability of these assumptions and how much is going to be the impact of COVID based on the sensitivity analysis that we can perform is something that all of us need to kind of be aware of and then appropriately report it in our audit report. So whilst there is no separate report that is provided on COVID, but in our normal audit report on financial statements, either as a key audit matter or as an emphasis of matter paragraph, there have been several instances where people have included EOMs on the potential impact of COVID. I have seen it especially in a industry like a financial services industry, where typically there is a lot of loans that have been given, moratorium has been provided, and therefore the impact on the both in terms of revenue that they will realize on these loans, as well as in terms of the potential non-performing assets which could be there on those assets. So to that extent, there is an uncertainty that is attached to that. So there are emphasis of matter paragraphs around that. There are EOMs around the meeting the loan covenants in terms of having enough liquidity in place, ensuring that they are able to meet the loan borrowings that they have and the the amount of installments that they have to pay over the next 12 months, both in terms of interest and principal. There are EOMs in place around that. There are also many companies, and again in terms of financial services or in terms of other entities, where there are additional COVID overlays have been made as a provision in addition to the normal ECL provisioning that are done. So again, there are emphasis of matter paragraphs around that. Impairment as a very significant area where because of COVID, because of the business projections, reduction in the businesses that are anticipated, several companies have taken a hit on impairment or have taken the position that notwithstanding this, based on their projections, impairment is either required or not required. Again, there are emphasis of matter paragraphs around that. Physical verification, possible, not possible, in certain cases done, in many cases could not be performed. So there are other matter paragraphs relating to that. So variety of cases. What I would just wanted to highlight here is it's not one area or two areas COVID has impacted, and these are just the direct areas that I'm talking about. There are other indirect areas like impact on leases, impact on inventory valuation, which are there, which may not come into the audit report as such, but is part of our audit itself when we are kind of looking at how COVID has really impacted. So to answer your question, yes, in many cases, COVID has in one way or the other been reported in our audit report, either as a key audit matter paragraph or as an emphasis of matter.
Thank you, sir. Karthik sir, there is one question. The gap between two AGMs is extended for 180 days in place of 120 days.
Board meetings.
Of course, board meetings. That is ended on 30th September. There is no extension for that. The question is, due to that extension, if the company is able to hold only 3 board meetings in the year 2021, is there a compliance issue there?
See, this notification also again came in the original notification which came in the first month itself. Thereafter, the government has in any case relaxed the conducting of board meetings through VC, and they have lifted all the embargo on it. I mean, all items you can now go on, you can do it. So virtually, I don't see any difficulty in holding the meeting. So therefore, the company is still, I think, duty bound. In my personal view, the company is duty bound to have 4 meetings in a year. And in this case, it is calendar year as per the secretarial standards. Also, it is by secretarial, it is calendar year. Therefore, if for the year 2020, the company, in my opinion, has to hold 4 meetings. I have seen other views also coming, but I am clear that 4 meetings the company has to have.
Sajivan sir, what is your one statement to all the companies, sir, in this COVID situation on the compliance side? Sajivan sir.
He might have left. He said 5:45. He wanted to leave for some.
He's there. Okay. Anyway, Krishna, this is regarding this reporting under Ind AS. There are some reportings to be done. Those companies, how do they?
So in addition to whatever we spoke, Ind AS has few more items or how it would impact. So in terms of fair value measurement as an area itself is always complicated, whether you consider COVID impact or not. So doing a fair value measurement for financial assets and financial liabilities with the overlay of COVID is something that is a definite complication which is there. So again, in terms of to give a simple example, let's if you take the example of ECL that needs to be done, there is a lot of assessment that is required to evaluate whether the amounts that are receivable, what would be the potential default which could be there, either in terms of how much would be the probability of default overlay, how much would be the loss at default LAD, what would be the PD, LD, and the exposure at default scenario for overlaying the impact of COVID on ECL. So significant amount of judgment involved around how we need to calculate the COVID impact for the valuation of the financial assets. Not only that, even if you take an example of fair valuation of other assets like an equity investment. So even in those cases where you need to account for the fair value impact, how do you value the impact when the 31st March number is significantly impacted because of COVID? So are there any aspects that needs to be considered when we are actually evaluating the impact, where the fair value determination is something that is difficult? So that again has a peculiarity in terms of how do we evaluate the impact, and then all this, bear in mind, will have an impact on the impairment also. So to that extent, the valuation that we are performing for all these financial assets and liabilities have to be as precise as possible given the amount of information that we have, and then be in a position to kind of take care of that part. Similar is the example, to talk about leases under 116. The impact on leases, is again not direct. People don't kind of realize that, okay, COVID is going to impact 116 accounting. But essentially, if you look at it, even a right to use asset that is recognized has to be tested for impairment. So even and when the Ind AS 116 is being evaluated, how much is the impact of any closures that are being evaluated for the leases that have been taken? What is going to be the expected useful life or the balance lease life that is to be considered from a 116 standpoint? Are there any changes to that because of COVID? Is something that needs to be considered. And then post that, when the ROU asset has been recognized in the books, there is an impairment evaluation that needs to be done for that as well. And there are various impairment models for doing the evaluation of the right to use aspect. So to that extent, that also will have an impact.
Thank you, Krishna. And Karthik sir, what do you feel that the XBRL filing? How does it, will it be smooth running this time? Will the PCS have a challenge in filing the returns?
See, for all the AGMs which have already been held, in any case, you have time up to 31st of December. Indirectly, you are getting it covered through the CFSs. Now, I am sure we will, ministry will look into the matter by the time, in the month of December, and probable extensions could be there because if the companies have held their AGMs in the last month only, there could be challenges. XBRL typically takes a lot of time in, constructing the records. So within 30 days, I don't find, it's so easy to be done.
So you expect another extension, another round of extension, and we will be in the fourth quarter then.
At least for XBRL. Because of so many validation issues and things like that, it's a time-consuming exercise. So that's why.
And what do you feel about the MCA portal? Will it post any challenges?
Your guess is as good as mine. So we can't.
We have to face when it comes.
Yeah, and as such, it is throwing up some challenges even in the routine normal times. But I think there is a change of vendor, so they might take some time to stabilize. We have little more time to upload the documents. So I hope we are able to manage. We are able to see. We got little more time this time. It's not that we have to have all the AGMs in the month of December only. We can push companies for holding their AGMs or completing the compliance as soon as possible, and so that we can get on to the work. So we have relatively more time, I would say.
But clients, they will always come only after 15th, and December 30th is going to be New Year. All those things are going to happen.
Yeah, that is true. That is something which is not in our hands. So wherever possible, we can push and get the compliance done.
Yes, Vivek. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think ROC sir, if he's there, I would like to ask one question. Otherwise, question. Yeah, okay. I think I'll pose this question to Karthik sir. Sir, there is a requirement under the these circulars where AGM is conducted through VC. All the resolutions, irrespective of whether it is an ordinary resolution or special resolution, all the resolutions should be filed within 60 days with ROC. That is the requirement. The specific question which is coming now is, which is the form which we should use for this filing?
Okay.
Any
see, this question has to be looked into from various angles. First of all, there are two forms which are visible to us. Ministry has not stated which form to be uploaded. So we had two choices. One is to go through GNL2, other is to go through MGT14. Why did we say MGT14? Because that is the form where normally resolutions are uploaded. Now, if you see, take MGT14, it has its own challenges. First of all, MGT14 is designed in such a way that system is going to take, in the normal course I am saying, 30 days time as a timeline within which it is to be filed. Whereas for this form, we are given 60 days time. So that's a challenge. However, if you go for the option of GNL2, then it's a general form, point number one. It does not require any kind of second check. By second check, what I mean is a certification. So a document can simply be uploaded without a second check. So we have been recommending MGT14 for the simple reason that 1+1 there is a check, and also we need to attach one extra declaration that the chairman has to give a declaration that all the provisions relating to this meeting has been done. The MGT14 form also has some extra details like the date of dispatch, etc., which come in very handy. So we are recommending MGT14, and we over GNL2. That is my reply.
Thank you very much, sir.
So I think now we have almost 6 o'clock. Is there any questions from the participants? So we have the speakers around. So I think Vivek can we end this
Yes.
session?
Yes.
I will
Yeah.
just formally mention the vote of thanks. Thank you, everybody, all the participants, the entrepreneurs.
Om Prakash,
Yes.
there was one question on producer company. Can one CS Pradeep Kumar has asked and I have answered it already.
Okay,
Okay.
sir.
It is there in the chat itself. No issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So that's what we having like professionals along with us helps us. Thank you, doctor, and thanks the speakers of the day, Mr. Krishna and Karthik, and of course our Sajivan sir, Registrar of Companies, and also thanks to Vivek to organize and be part of our session, especially on the audit issues and annual compliances. If possible, we will reassemble as a third edition if needed, as Mr. Karthik was expecting another extension. We don't know. We don't know. If that is the case, and if we really have problems coming up, we will reassemble. Karthik, Krishna is also having a smile. Nobody knows, nobody has a clue about this. But yes, there are going to be some new issues going to surface. These are all unprecedented, and all we are talking is about guess and iterations have not been done. Nothing is to be we can't relate anything behind. Even the judicial also we have court cases so that we can rely upon that. But here nothing is there. So everybody has to guess, and we have to go as a going concern. So with this note, I think we will conclude this meeting, and I thank all the speakers, all the professionals, the auditors, the company secretaries, the entrepreneurs, taking time in their busy schedule. Of course, I can't say it's a busy schedule, but at least from the work from home schedules. And of course, we saw the people coming dot on 4 o'clock. Thank you very much. And thanks for the overwhelming response. On to you, Vivek. Few words from your side.
Thank you, sir. I take this opportunity to thank all the speakers, CS Karthik sir, CA Krishna Prasad, and our Sajivan sir, Registrar of Companies. In spite of their busy schedule, they have come and expressed their views. I thank all of them on behalf of Bangalore chapter of ICSI, and especially the ROC sir, as he was telling, there is a recommendation is going on ease of doing business. He was so shown his gesture to take our views. It was my privilege. We have given our views. Thank you. And also he has expressed his view that he will take up this digital signature on the financial statement with ministry. Thank you, sir. And I also thank each and every participants who have participated in this webinar in good numbers. And I also thank Dr. Om Prakash sir and entire his team from BCIC for joining hand with ICSI Bangalore chapter for hosting this webinar. Thank you one and all. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vivek. Thanks, everybody, and thanks, Dr. K.S. Ravichandran. You have participated from Coimbatore, and thanks to the Secretariat, Mr. Shyam Prakash, Prithvi, and Rupa, who have done a wonderful job in sending out the invites. And thank you, one and all. So we can be there 5 minutes. If you want to interact, we can interact, or we can close. I know many of them wouldn't have had the coffee also. Everybody is looking at the clock.
1 minute, sir. From Secretariat, we'll just thank you, Mr. Chair Leader, yourself, and Vivek Hegde for driving this, to have a successful of this event. It's under your two drivership which has happened. And I can see Ravichandran sir, we're looking forward for an event on November 3rd.
Yes, we will be coming up. We'll be soon coming up with an event with NCLT and IBC. We are working on that. It will be in the first week of November. I think we should again coordinate with ICSI for more participation. I think Vivek, we should work on that.
Sure. We can do that. We are always there, sir.
Yes.
We are all members of institute as well. We can't. So we are just trying to see whether the 4 years journey of NCLT and IBC. We are trying to loop Sahu also, Mr. Sahu, and also the other NCLT members can join us for that meeting. So we'll be very soon coming out with that, and we are also working on another event in the next week that is going to be on RBI circular on the bank account openings. So there is a restriction going to happen. So we are coming out with that. So we will send you the invites. Please join us. So thank you all. Thank you all for your time. Thank you, the speakers. We'll keep in touch. Please
Thank you so
guide
much.
us. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Krishna and Karthik. Thanks for your time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all, sir.
Thank you, Vivek.
Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you.